Hello everyone, welcome to the Standard Response Protocol training video. My name is Matt Novosad and I'm a sergeant with the LaPorte Police Department. I've been a law enforcement officer with LaPorte for 19 years and started working with these schools in August of 2005 as a school resource officer and currently serve as a supervisor over the SRO program. Today we're going to go over the Standard Response Protocol method as it's taken place and as it's instituted in all of our schools. But a little history on it, the Standard Response Protocol method is developed by the I Love You Guys Foundation. The I Love You Guys Foundation is a foundation that was started by John Michael Keyes. His daughter, Emily Keyes, tragically lost her life in a school shooting in Platte Canyon, Colorado on September 27, 2006. During the time that she was held hostage and before her life was brutally ended, she had texted her parents, "I love you guys." And the very next text message was, "I love you guys," okay? And that's where the foundation started. So through this foundation, they have started the Standard Response Protocol. This response protocol method has been approved by the governor after the Santa Fe shooting in May of 2018. This method will be instituted in districts in the state of Texas, and we started this last year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. And if you do have any questions throughout the series, please jot those down, and they will get to me, and then I will answer them accordingly. Thank you. So the Standard Response Protocol, one of the main things that we have is the poster. The poster is posted around every school campus here in the district, and you will see the different things that go on that we will be talking about, color-coded and different signs on the poster. As you see, we have blue, red, green, and orange with blue hands, a red lock, a green with 3 people, and then an orange with a person and a rooftop. This was developed because we needed something to share, a shared lexicon between different groups of people, including students, staff, and first responders. We really didn't have that in the past, and this SRP, as it's known, brings all these groups together with shared language. So first with our first responders, as you know, with fire, EMS, and PD, even our language between each other sometimes is different, so we needed something that we all could understand. And then also we need to be able to share this with our students. So our students, in a simple language, would know exactly what to do in any scenarios that we needed to have them either in emergency or any other type of activity that we needed them to have instructions and get to a safe place. And of course our staff. So that our staff would be on the same page with first responders and students. And of course our parents. A lot of times we leave our parents out when we talk about emergency response. So this method allows us to share these common languages between all these groups of people so that everybody is on the same page. So the Standard Response Protocol, SRP, has 4 actions. And you will see that each of those actions is followed by the color and the symbol associated with each action. So we have lock out, lock down, evacuate, and shelter. So each of those actions is followed by a directive, which is very simple in very clean language. So on the lockout, which is the blue with the hands, it's a simple lockout, secure the perimeter. Very simple. On the lockdown, the directive is lockdown, locks, lights, and out of sight. In evacuate, the directive is evacuate, and then we'll tell the location of where it may be, because if it's a shelter in place, it's going to be a different location than if it's an emergency response to, say, an active shooter. And then shelter. So shelter in place for a hazard using a safety strategy. That's going to be our bad weather events, a chemical spill, or whatever may be occurring at the time. So every action has a specific instructions as well. And those specific instructions will be addressed on the public address system throughout the campuses. So when we do the public address, it's the action and the directive is repeated. Because as you know, the first time we say something is when we get the attention. The second time we say something is actually when people hear it. So when we're on a lockout, we will say, lockout, secure the perimeter, lockout, secure the perimeter. You'll hear that twice over the public address system. So why do we even go to a lockout? Because we can't confuse this with a lockdown. So a lockout is normally instituted when there's something dangerous near the school. It could be criminal activity. So say if police were chasing someone and the chase was either in a vehicle or on foot and it was near a school, we may lock out so that we can prevent that person from actually entering into our facilities. So that's something criminal that may be going on. There may be a civil unrest. So if there's something that has happened and it's caused protests in the community, we may go into a lockout to secure the facility so that in case that protest gets uncivilized or gets violent, then we can protect the students and staff inside the building by locking them out. Could be this dangerous animal on the playground. So we don't really have these problems. Remember, this is a Colorado, it began in Colorado, so they do have bears and whatnot there, so they do use this in case of dangerous animals on the playground. So what happens in a lockout? Basically, this means no one in, especially, and no one out. So this is what it will look at when we do a lockout.
Lockouts are typically called for by law enforcement officials.
Hi, this is Evan with the Broomfield Police Department.
Or district personnel.
A lockout. Okay, thank you for the information. Bye-bye.
Attention students, we're in lockout, secure the perimeter. Lockout, secure the perimeter.
The goals of a lockout are to get all students and staff inside the building.
Guys, come on in. You need to get inside. Go to the first classroom on the right. Hurry, 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 hurry.
And then lock all exterior doors. In most cases of a lockout, it will be business as usual inside the school. However, in some cases, a lockdown may also be issued in conjunction with a lockout, particularly if the threat is near the school.
So that was lockout. That is securing the perimeter, no one in and out, and we'll talk about a few things that were happening in there. So first, on the student instructions, what we want to tell the students is we want to tell them to get in the building. So if we have students outside, they're on the playground, or in some cases where maybe they're outside with a class, we want to get everybody into the building as quickly as possible. We also tell the students that once they're in, and if we see some students going out, we will not allow anyone to go out. Also, if you'll notice, we went into the lockout business as usual. Normally inside the building is going to be safe. We're just taking precautions because there's something going on outside the building. So teachers can teach, we can eat lunch, we can go to the restroom, business as usual. Just we won't be, if we have a period to where kids need to go outside to PE or band, we won't allow that to happen, and we'll make concessions on that. But normally it's just business as usual. As far as teacher and the instructions for them, we'll tell them to go get the kids, bring everyone inside. So a lot of times for our elementaries, the teacher will be with the kids. We'll tell them to get themselves and the kids inside. Also, we tell the teachers to lock the outside doors. In our safety protocols, all of the outside doors, they're locked where you can't get in during the day, and only card key access. So we will tell them to lock them, make sure they're locked, and if they're not, to go ahead and secure those doors. And also just to increase situational awareness, which is what we should be doing every day anyway. So this should be second nature. So we'll just tell the teachers, just kind of keep an eye out, even though they're doing business as usual. And then we'll also take attendance and note the time when we do all this. So once the teachers get inside and they go to teach their class business as usual, we'll have them just take a quick attendance and then note the time. And then again, business as usual. That way it keeps everyone calm, the students focused on the lesson and not what's going on outside, and it just makes the atmosphere a lot more calm. So we discussed this, we talk about when a lockout might occur. We've seen those to where Could be the dangerous animals or civil unrest or criminal activity. And then who can call a lockout? So a lot of times a lockout will start from the police side, because if there's something going on outside the building, the police will know first. We usually call the front office or whoever we need to contact, whoever we have as a contact, and let them know that they need to go into a lockout. And then at that time, the school will go into a lockout. But anyone can call a lockout, whether somebody sees something. If a teacher's out in the playground and they see something they don't like and they come back in and tell the appropriate person, then the lockout can be initiated by the school. And then what about class changes? So we talked about class changes. As long as it's inside the building, we're good. If class changes involve something going outside the building, then no, we will not do those class changes. Can we leave the school? No, because we're in a lockout, so something's outside that's going to be harmful, and we don't want anyone to leave and put themselves in harm's way, so we will not be leaving the school. So that's lockout. Next, we'll move to lockdown. So same again, we'll repeat. We have an action and a directive. So we'll say lockdown, locks, lights, out of sight, and that'll be twice. So lockdown, why do we do a lockdown? Well, now we've got something where it's dangerous inside the building. So now we need to lock it down. Could be a crazy person inside the building. We've seen these people. They could have possibly wandered in some kind of way through a door that somebody else was coming through, or they could have been in the office, and then now they have some mental stuff going on that they start having an episode and they get into the building. Or it could be something worse, which we don't like to talk about. It could be an active attack inside the building. So this is what lockdown looks like.
If you are in a classroom when a lockdown is called, the main thing to remember is locks, lights, out of sight. As students gather in a safe area of the room, lock the door and turn off all lights. Have everyone in the room move to a location that is out of sight. Pick an area of the room that can't be seen from interior windows. An actual lockdown may not be resolved for several hours. Here's how you should wait. Stay in the safe location. Don't move around the room. Remain silent. Staff, take written attendance of who is in the room. Note anyone missing and if you have any extra students or staff.
So some of the student instructions that we go through during a lockdown. First and foremost, we're going to stay out of sight of the corridor window. So with all those, any of your classroom windows or your doors that have windows, the first thing we're going to do is get out of sight of those windows. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to be silent. Now, I know if we're going into a lockdown and we have little ones, it's going to be challenging, but you'd be surprised as long as you as the adults stay calm, normally the children will stay calm. So just try to remain silent as you can. Now, we do not open the door for anyone. Now, this sometimes has a lot of discussion because we worry about little kids that went to the restroom and they're out in the hallway now trying to get back in. Now, something that wasn't discussed on the slides, but that we do try to do is that when we go into a lockdown, we do a quick sweep, which means we look in the hallway from our classroom to make sure there's no one standing right outside the door that we can grab in. And if we can do that, great. Once we lock that door and we are in lockdown mode, we do not open that door for anyone, students, adults, anyone, because we don't know if the bad person is using a student to get you to open the door so then they can now come in and do more harm. So I know that's kind of hard for some people to grasp, but that's what we do. Some of the teacher instructions, of course, we're going to have them lock and close the classroom door. Now, we should be teaching. When we're teaching, we have kids in our classroom. The door should be closed, and it should be locked already, so we don't have to fumble with all of that. In the case, for whatever reason, the door is open and unlocked, then we need to quickly get that door closed and locked as quickly as possible. Also, turning out the lights. So once we've moved away from the corridor window and we've got everybody where we need them, we're going to turn out the lights. And now we're going to leave the window uncovered. Some people have worked in different districts where they cover the windows. And there's talk about pros and cons of that. Some of the discussions were that if your school practices that your windows are closed all the time, as far as having blinds or some kind of paper where they're closed all the time, then you'll do that. But for the most part, for our district, our windows don't have those, they're open. So we will not cover them, because if they're not covered every day and then now all of a sudden they're covered, then that lets the person know there's somebody in that classroom. And we do not slide anything under the door. That was an old rule a long time ago where we used the red and green cards to indicate that we were okay or there was somebody injured. All that does is tell the bad person that we have people inside that classroom. So nothing under the door. I don't think so. Oh, there we go. And then teachers will also maintain silence. Again, challenging for a lot, but again, if you remain calm and you remain silent, the kids will remain calm and silent. So then we'll take attendance and note the time. And you'll see that we do this on just about everything, just for muscle memory. Once we get that, I know you're thinking, what's dark? How am I going to take attendance and note the time? Do the best you can. So this is what lockdown will look like.
If a fire alarm sounds, do not leave your safe location unless you are certain that a fire is threatening your room. If you are forced to evacuate due to a fire, keep in mind that the hall may not be your best escape route.
So that was the lockdown. If you heard, it was repeated: lockdown, locks, lights, and out of sight. There was no special key words, no nothing to say like Elvis is in the building. We don't do any of that. Simple language again. So some discussions between the lockdown and the lockout. Again, lockdown where something's bad inside the building. Lockout, something's bad outside the building. So if you're outside during a lockdown, obviously you're not going to be able to come back inside. This is where you're going to have to make the determination of where you're going to go. If you're outside on the playground with little elementary children and it's safer for you to run away, because if we're in a lockdown, that means something bad is going on inside. You don't want to bring all those children inside the building to a dangerous situation. You at that point can have the option of leaving with those children. Now, some other facts that come up or discussions is, well, what if those little kids, they run and they hide or they can't be found? This is my line I give to everyone. I would rather stress about finding children than stressing about getting prepared to go to their funeral. So do what you can with the kids. When it's a crisis situations, most of the time the kids will listen to you and do what you ask to do, and they'll go with you. Go find a house, go find an open garage in the nearest public building, whatever you need to do. What if there's no teacher? I would hope that in our little ones that the teacher's always with them. If there's not, then the kids will have to decide at that time what to do. This discussion topic is mostly related to our older children, high school, even junior high. They may be outside getting ready for football practice, or for some of our high school kids that get out early, they may be in the parking lot. Their point in time, they need to just leave, and we'll worry about finding them later. A lot of times, like I said, in the crisis situation, they're going to go somewhere safe and make contact. What if you're in the hallway? If you're in the hallway and you have the opportunity to get into a classroom, that's your best bet. If you're not and you can actually go into a restroom and secure yourself, that's good. Some type of maybe even a janitor closet. Or you may have to, if it's available to you, you may actually have to go out of the building and get away from the situation as well. What if the fire alarm sounds? In Santa Fe, as you remember, the fire alarm did sound. So people exited the classrooms, and that's when the chaos ensued. For us, for LaPorte ISD, it's been approved and discussed with the fire marshal and the police department and the district that when the fire alarm sounds, we do not leave the classroom. We wait at least 90 seconds. And in that 90 seconds, that gives us time to either look on video cameras, or if there's an officer on the campus, can go to the pool station or wherever the alarm may be coming from, to make sure that it's not the bad guy pulling the alarm. So within those 90 seconds, then there'll be an announcement. If it's a lockdown, you'll hear the lockdown announcement and you will stay. If it's a true fire alarm, the only reason that we really leave is if we have to get out of there because it's life and death, because there's an actual fire either in your classroom or next to you to where the kids are in danger. So can we text our parents? Yes. Now, discussion on this. We have to make some common ground with our kids. They are attached to their phones. They're going to text their parents. So what we ask you to do is when you're locked down and you're out of sight, and we don't want those backgrounds on those phones giving away our location because they're going to be bright, you can get it in a manner to where you can maybe have 4 or 5 kids at a time just to text the parent a quick text of, and use the I Love You Guys Foundation. I love you, we're fine. We're locked down. That's it. And then the next group can go. So remember, they're going to text anyway, so it's better to have something where you can have a plan to text other than just telling them no. And then also just letting them know that they are going to be able to text when you let them know, so they're just not all pulling their phones out automatically. So that was locked down. So now we'll move into evacuate. So again, we have evacuate, and then depending on why we are evacuating, the location will be determined. So some of the student instructions that we give during evacuations. Leave your stuff behind. Now, we all know they're going to have their phones with them. That's okay. Backpacks, purses, jackets, unless it's just extremely cold outside, which we're in Texas and that normally doesn't happen. Just leave their stuff behind. They are the most important item right now other than their stuff. More likely they're going to have their phone in their pocket, but if you see them starting to grab backpacks to get their phone or trying to dig in there, just tell them they got to go. In the students, we listen for the directions, because once we're evacuating, there's a lot of different reasons why we evacuate. So they'll have to listen for those directions of why we're evacuating and where to go. So some of the teacher instructions. So at evacuation area, so once you leave the building or the classroom or wherever you're going and you make it to that particular area, you're going to take attendance. Now there are other options, and we talked about this earlier during the lockdown, self-evacuation. This could be that these particular students or teachers or staff are on one end of the building and the violence is occurring on the other end of the building. They need to self-evacuate, or they have the option to self-evacuate. Or there's a fire in the classroom or next to them where they need to leave. They can self-evacuate at that point as well. So here is what it looks like for self-evacuation for the students.
During the initial moments of a school violence situation, the official call for a lockdown may not have occurred or not have been heard by everyone. You need to assess your personal safety. Consider your best option. This may include staying in a classroom behind a locked door, hiding, or evacuating. Self-evacuation, which means exiting the school and leaving the campus, is an option. If you're in a hallway, common area, or near an exterior door, self-evacuation may be your best choice. Once you've arrived at a safe location, you should immediately check in with your parents and the school district to let them know you're safe.
Okay, so that was student evacuation, and we saw some different things occurring there, and we'll talk about that here after we watch this police evacuation, because it's a little bit different, and we'll go over both of those here in just a minute. So here is police evacuation.
When law enforcement begins the evacuation, here's what to expect. An officer will unlock your door and enter the room. Stay where you are. The officer will give you specific instructions you must follow.
Broomfield Police Department, you're safe, everything's okay, we're going to get you out of the building. I need everyone to follow my instructions. I need a single file line, leave all your personal property on the floor where it is, form me a single file line right here at the door. Teacher, I need you in front, please.
You will be asked to leave your stuff behind, form a line at the door with the teacher in front.
I need everyone to hold hands with the person to your right and left.
Hold hands with the person in front of and behind you until you reach your final destination. Wait quietly for further instructions from the officer.
Teacher, I need you to walk out, follow the instructions of that officer right there. Go ahead.
You will be told to proceed to the next officer. Walk, do not run, and do not talk.
Walk towards the stairs.
Follow the directions of the officers guiding you during the evacuation. They could be
Walk toward
giving
the
you
stairs,
verbal
please.
directions
Right to the stairs.
or hand signals. Watch the pace of your line. Be aware of obstacles such as corners, fallen objects, debris, or stairs which may affect the speed your line can move. Don't stop until you reach the location you were directed to.
Keep moving all the way to the end of the fence. All the way to the end of the fence. Keep moving.
Verify attendance and wait for further instructions.
Connor.
Here.
Andrew. Here.
Okay. So as you can tell, those evacuations are different. So some of the student instructions during those evacuations, we'll go with the police one first. We're going to ask the students to keep your hands visible. That's just for law enforcement purposes. We know that hands can hurt, so we always want to see the students' hands. That's why you saw them holding hands, and then sometimes we'll ask them to put their hands in front of their face. Leave your stuff behind. Again, just like in any other evacuation, we don't need anything but you. You are the most precious commodity at that time. Students will bring their phone, and we want them to bring their phone because a lot of times we can make contact with them, and it's just a lot easier to locate them in case something is dynamic and the group gets split up. And during that police evacuation, the kids have got to know that we being the police, are going to be a little bit loud. We're going to be amped up. We're in a dynamic situation, and our main goal is to get those kids and you safely out of the building into a safe area. So we might be a little loud, just don't be surprised. So some of the instructions that we'll give to the teachers during this is we'll grab your attendance sheet. There should be some type of attendance sheet that you get, even as subs, that you can grab with the rosters for that day. Bring your phone, and I know some of y'all probably still have these phones. I'm looking at y'all. So bring your phone because we need to know you're okay and we can reach you, and then you can reach your loved ones too as well. So again, when we get to that evacuation area, we want to take attendance. If you'll notice, this is the same thing on all these different directives, so we want to take attendance when we get to that evacuation area. So on discussions, do you have permission to self-evacuate? If you saw during the student evacuation, what do we see? We had a couple different dynamics there. So we had 3 kids in the hallway. They heard some shots going on. What'd they do? They go into a classroom. They go into lockdown, locks, lights, out of sight. Did exactly what they were supposed to do. The other child coming down the stairwell, he hears the shots. Instead of going down the stairwell to the danger, he self-evacuates. He goes out, he goes home. Now, he probably doesn't call the school right away. We want him to do that. More likely, he probably texts his buddies to either say, hey, are you okay? I'm okay. And then quickly put it on social media, then call the school, more likely. But he made a phone call. So yes, you do have permission to self-evacuate. Just depends on what the environment is giving you at that time. Just keep that in mind. And yes, we have to use common sense. So think about that. So if you self-evacuate, where do you go? Here's the answer to that question. It's very easy. To a safe place away from danger. That's it. I don't care where you go, as long as it's safe. A public building, somebody's house. There's been documented incidences where there was a violent event happening. A teacher took her children, went off campus and found an open garage. She went in there. They were in there for 3 hours. Now, when school starts in August, if you're in a garage in Texas for 3 hours, it's going to get hot. So think about those things too as well. Now, knock, knock, police open up. Okay, what did we say earlier? We do not open the doors for anyone, even us. That is not going to happen. Anybody knocks and says, open the door, do not do it. I don't care who if they're the FBI, police, the president, I don't care. Don't open the door. So what can you take with you during evacuation? You want to just take minimal. Take yourself, your phones, your house key, that would be good. So kind of keep those things on you. If your purse is small enough and it's right there with you, it's okay to grab your purse if those personal belongings are all right there together. If you've carried backpacks to school and those roll carts and stuff, you don't have to take all that stuff. Just take you yourself as the most important, and then the phone and any small personal items to help you get back home. And then again, why do we keep our hands visible? We talked about this. For us, for law enforcement, it's a safety factor because hands hurt. So what will police do? Police will actually have a key. They will open the door and direct you where to go. That's why we won't knock. We will actually either be with someone or have a key that will physically unlock the door to get you out of your area, wherever that may be. So that was evacuation. Now we will move on into shelter. So shelter again, it'll be repeated twice. And then we will, once we do a shelter, depending on what that shelter is, bad weather, chemical spill, whatever it may be, then we'll go into our safety strategies for that particular hazard. So first we have to figure out, is the hazard a danger or a risk? That's one of our first things that we need to do. And then once we identify what the hazard is, then we go into our safety strategies. And then that's the action or plan to remain safe for that hazard. So for instance, if the hazard is a tornado, we don't have storm shelters because if we did, here on the Gulf Coast, we'd probably have to wear snorkels in order to get to those storm shelters. So a tornado, our safety protocol is to get into a hallway, get away from the windows, and then have a buddy system as well, and for the tornado hazard. Earthquakes, we don't have these that I know of yet. But if we did, of course, we would want to get underneath something that would protect us from falling ceiling tiles and whatnot. Hazmat, so this is familiar for us. We live in the chemical industry area. If you remember ITC, luckily we were not here, and so we didn't have to deal with it. But if we have some type of hazardous material spill, release, whatever it may be, then we go in, we start sealing all of our vents and the doors. So be familiar with what your SIP kits are, which is your shelter-in-place kits. Each classroom has those. If you're not familiar with it and this situation occurs, you should have a buddy teacher on either side of you that can help you if you're not familiar with what to do. Tsunamis, not yet. So anyway, if we do get a storm surge, that's our tsunami. Hopefully by that time nobody will be here, but if you do, get to high ground. Again, common sense. And a zombie attack, we could have those. Get a kit, make a plan, be prepared. All right, so during a hazard, we will always listen for instructions. That's the main thing, because we don't know what the hazard is. It's going to come on, we're either going to be bad weather, chemicals, whatever it may be. So once we know what that hazard is, listen for those instructions and then carry those out accordingly. Be prepared for the unexpected. Here's the thing. Something can happen, we'll have a plan in place, and Murphy's Law says what? Something's going to go awry. We get that. So just be prepared the best you can. Know where those SIP kits are, and because sometimes you may open a SIP kit. We are very good about making sure at the beginning of the year that they're all supplied. We may miss something, some tape or a towel or something. So just kind of be prepared for that, and don't panic. Just take a breath and figure out what to do. Teachers at this time on a hazard, if it's possible, you want to take attendance. We may be in a bad weather event. We may be kind of moving different areas depending on what's going on. So it may not be possible, but if it is, again, for muscle memory purposes, to make it consistent across the board, we'll take attendance. So other hazards and safety strategies besides the ones we discussed, there's really not a whole lot more. Electricity goes out, that can be another one, power outages, whatnot. So if you have any questions on that, just like I said, jot them down, get them to me, and I'll answer them accordingly, or give it to the campus principal and they can answer it accordingly according to their EOPs. So that was shelter. So we've gone through all four. We have lock out, lock down, evacuate, and shelter. So like I said, this was all developed so all this language could be simplified, consistent, and it can be shared amongst students, staff, first responders, and of course our parents. Now, the SRP, it's a living document, if you will. So when SRP was initiated, a couple years ago, there was one more thing that was added, and we have these on our posters. So one more action, one more directive real quick. If you'll notice, it's a red circle with a door. So this is what we call a hold. Hold in your classroom, hold in your classroom. Again, a directive repeated twice. Why do we need to do this? Halls need to be kept clear. So I can give you a hands-on experience that I had here at the high school. We had a young lady who had a medical episode. She was in the hallway. We had to bring the screens out from the nurse's office, screen her off because it was right during class change. It was pretty chaotic, but we kept it controlled and got people to a different area. So now that we have this directive, when that sort of thing happens, we can then say just hold in the classroom where we don't have all to deal with the children changing classes. So some of the instructions for the students: remain in the classroom until all clear. This would be a typical high school classroom setting if this happens, but just normally these things will take place quickly, and then we won't have to have them in a classroom for a long amount of time, hopefully. And then, of course, the teachers as well will tell them to remain in the classroom until they're given the all clear. So they'll close and lock the classroom door, just like you would in a lockdown, but you'll just close and lock the door so nobody goes in and out of the doors and no kids are trying to go in and out. And then business as usual as much as you can. Because if it's at the end of class and we're holding kids, they're going to get antsy. They're already talking, getting ready to go to the next class. So try to get them back down and just calm and do maybe a quick activity or something just to kind of keep them calm. So what about class changes? No, we don't do that. No class changes during a hold. That's the whole purpose for the hold. So remember, our 4 actions: lock out, lock down, evacuate, and shelter. And the last one that we added, hold in your classroom. So tell the parents. We have flyers that we send out to them to let them know what we're doing here so that they're very familiar. So when they come up and they see those particular signs on the door or their kids are texting them telling what we're going on, they're familiar with it too as well. We have to keep the parents informed. Some of the people that helped put on this video series is the 5-star school. And also, we'll leave you with this: peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. That's John Michael Keys from the I Love You Guys Foundation. Thank you for all listening, being attentive. Like I said, any questions, comments, or concerns, please get those to either the campus principal or email me personally, and I will answer those as quick as I can. Thank you and be safe.